did you see in 2019, and what made the change?
Thank you, Chairperson. So I think the biggest change in 1819 is how we become more digitalized. I think this is attributed to two things. Mainly one thing, it's the global direction of ISAC 2020. So we have new customer flow, and we try to create an open platform. And that's why in 1819 we start to have like landing pages. In 1718 we try to like create one Facebook page, that sort of stuff, to create one digital ecosystem. So that's the biggest change.
Any follow-up question? I say it's you.
Please evaluate the performance of each national planning, such as ways to improve us as the leadership body of ISAC. Time's up.
Okay.
Other.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think for top leadership body, the vision, mission, and strategy alignment can be stronger. This is something that I observed as an NLT trainer. Like I see that LCPs and MC can benefit from a session about vision, like mission and strategy alignment. Another thing is, I think the communications, like in terms of MC-LC relations can be better. I'm not saying that, what I mean is MC can be a little bit more assertive to explain the ideas behind and why they are doing such things, like the rationale behind. Because when I was doing LC visits, I realized like some LCs might have misunderstanding towards MC. And the third thing is leaders of ISAC in Hong Kong, we need to like think more from our members' perspective, because when I was doing transitions, a lot of us mentioned commitment issues from members, and that implies we need to think from them.
Ms. Elsie. ICHK.
Chairperson. If you're able to design a new business model or product for ISAC, what would that be like?
Thank you, Chairperson. This new product is aligning with the global direction 1819. So the product will be a YS series with YouSpeak survey, YouSpeak forum, and YouSummit as a whole package. And we focus on MNCs, corporates as the major, like ourselves will be targeting these people. Like the vision behind this is, so I'm not sure if you heard of a survey that is assessing like DSC students, whether they feel pressured about the DSC. And it is a very credible survey in Hong Kong. And that is the vision for YouSpeak survey. Like we are representing university students. So we can ask students whether they feel pessimistic or hopeful about 2030 every year. And this can engage media with like media value. And then we package those for YouSpeak forum for discussions and YouSummit for like creation of solutions. And that can help us become a credible leadership organization, because we don't just speak.
Follow-up question. I say it's UHK.
Why student exchange is still the most relevant way that ISAC defines to youth development?
Thank you, Chairperson. I think it's about the core value of exchange that cannot be replaced. So, so value is the best tool for one to understand your own values, because you're immersing in a completely different set of culture, through which you understand your own set of culture and values, and this cannot be replaced by any other opportunities. Like this is transcending time, and that's why it's not just about 2019. It's about from the past until the future. Exchange will always be valuable.
Okay. I say AKBU.
Thank you, Chairperson. Hi there. Can you report on 3 legislative that MCP so cannot repeat their culture areas.
Okay. Thank you, Chairperson. The first one is, like I mentioned, the lean marketing system. I think that is a great foundation. The second one is I appreciate TN trying to do 18-20 like leadership recruitment, because this is how the succession should be like. And the third thing is like our OGV is starting to focus more on IR operations, and this is something that we should leverage on in 1920.
Any follow-up question? I say HAB.
Thank you, Chairperson. So how will you sustain the legacy?
Time's up.
So for the lean marketing system, it's essentially studying all the data collected from this year, so that we can optimize the whole digital ecosystem. There's one thing. The second thing is behind the concept of lean. We need to implement agile workflow so that the entire thing is really agile. About the 18-20 leadership transition succession thing, it's actually in my manifesto. So the best way to really leverage in my session is really after election. I know ENC there's a task force about setting the recruitment framework for leaders of 2020, and I'll be engaging in that. And for our operations, we will be building some products to incentivize people to go on IR ventures.
I say XAU.
Thank you, Chairperson. So Darren, in your manifesto, you mentioned that you want to create an engaging and purpose-driven culture. Can you be more specific in describing what is the culture that you want to create in ASEAN in Hong Kong by the end of the term? Please be specific to facilitate the plenary in which you are.
Okay.
There.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think the best way to be specific is just to give examples. So about an engaging as in Hong Kong. So I know some LCs had Christmas party. That is one way to build an engaging culture, and that's why in my manifesto I said maybe in LC visits I said about MCFM being a monthly retreat, about WNCF being a half-term retreat. So this is the concept of being an engaging culture. It's not just work hard; it's work hard and play hard. There's one thing. Purpose-driven. Purpose-driven is something that that I appreciate HKU doing, voluntary visits to Southeast Asia underprivileged people, and that is one way for us to be purpose-driven. We're not just striving for exchange numbers. We live out our values, and that is how we become purpose-driven.
Follow-up question. I say HAU.
Thank you, Chairperson. Darren, do you think that it is needed to create a distinctive culture for IC in Hong Kong to make us different from others?
So can you repeat
Well,
again? I was
okay.
wrong.
Do you think it is needed to build a distinctive culture for IC in Hong Kong that makes us different from other entities?
There.
Thank you, Chairperson. I don't think it's necessary to build a distinctive culture to differentiate with other entities. I think it's necessary to build a culture because of the realistic situation in Hong Kong, which is we work too hard but we play too little, and that's why I want to build an engaged organization for sustainable motivation. And I think we stress too much on exchange, but somehow the idea behind exchange is we want to create impact for the world, and that's why we need to become more purpose-driven.
I say XLC. I say HAUSC.
Thank you, Chairperson. So, candidate, what is the largest gap between your vision and the reality after you have had LC consultations before elections?
There.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think I see a bug in terms of how LCs are perceiving the role of MC. like my plan talks about a lot of things where it's nationalized and people are kind of worried because maybe from 17, 18, like the MC could be a little bit more communicative, and that's why my plan is maybe creating a little bit of worry in terms of how it is interfering with LC operations.
Okay, follow-up question. Answer curiosity.
Chairperson, what can you do as a leader to get please explain?
Darren.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think that is a really great question. That is something in my mind all the time. The thing is, we need to build stronger trust with people, and the way to do that is to be an active listener. So this is something in my plan. Like, as soon as I get elected, actually before I get elected, I'm already reaching out to LCs, and I want to make sure I listen a lot. And even if there are things that I'm not really agreeing with, I would tell immediately, because I don't want to give them expectation that I'm listening, but just for the sake of listening. Trust is being built on authenticity, and it's built through daily actions of communication. So I just want to be listening and communicating authentically.
SLC. Answer the
Mr. Chairperson, for the candidate, what kind of elements do you think this generation is missing to find their integrity?
Thank you, Chairperson. So as I mentioned last night about how the education system is not and allowing us to become purpose-driven. So in terms of Isaac context, what we can do to help people become more purpose-driven, one is we provide them with trainings so that they can maximize their learning in their challenging work, one. Two is we need to have consolidation every single month about their values, strengths, and passion. This should be done throughout the entire year because you will have realizations continuously. And that is how we gradually move people to become more purpose-driven.
follow-up question. Answer in Lingnan.
Thank you, Chairperson. In what way, like practical action, can we help people to find these elements? Like, sorry, that mentioned like,
I think,
Darren.
thank you, Chairperson. Maybe I can elaborate a little bit more about training. What am I talking about in terms of training? So one is NLT training. That will be something that we must do quarterly next year. Second is NTT Leadership Academy. That is for LCBPs and managers. And I intentionally include the managers into this training because I want to form a distinctive community for the managers too, so that they feel they are a unique part of Isaac, which is not really the case right now. For coaching, the way to make that happen is, so we in our team standards we need to do monthly O2Os. It's just embedding coaching into that team standards element.
Answer in Paul.
Thank you, Chairperson. In 1920, you would like to start with people. Given that you're a former LCP of CUHK, can you tell us what positive legacy you have left for CUHK in terms of people?
Thank you, Chairperson. Two big legacies. The one is we have an internal conference called Rise Up Conference, and it's a leadership development conference. So I was being challenged back then about how leadership can be actually taught. Like people doubt if this can be actually taught, but I'm really determined because I think there are fundamental qualities and skills that we can teach people to become leaders. This is the first thing. The second thing is we had a 17-19 transition camp in August, like when my other ENCs, like we are all discharged, but I want to insist we prepare the next generation well. So we had an August transition camp.
Okay, follow-up question. Answer in Paul.
Thank you, Chairperson. Then can you also share what negative impact that you brought to CHK as well? Thank you.
Follow-up clarification.
In terms of being so focused on people, right? Okay, thank you.
Derek.
Thank you, Chairperson. So when I was setting expectations with my EVs, I told them I'm a really people-focused person in terms of developing them, and I told them I will be challenging you guys a lot. And actually, in the term, like two of my LCVBs got so frustrated with me. Like one is here in the room. Like that time I was trying to persuade him to be a double functional area VP. And I told him, like, this will be the best learning for you, even though he was like, oh yeah. That second occasion is when I pushed John, our LCVP OGV, a little bit too much because I believe the exchange peak is the best way for him to grow and for us to send out impact over the world. And that has caused some backlash because he was so frustrated by me pushing him too much. But like we ended on a great note. He didn't resign and that we are still like.
Terms of candidate.
Okay.
Member committee.
Thank you, Chairperson. So, hi, candidate. Can you tell me what is the biggest strength and weakness of Isaac Hong Kong Limited in terms of external networking currently, and how do you see it improve as an MCP?
Thank you, Chairperson. Our biggest strength is actually it's the YS product itself because we are able to leverage ourselves as a platform that has a huge youth network. This allows companies to have like CSR, brand exposure, digital and physical like physical presence of their brand. The weakness is we don't have enough capacity, like people, to be our like partnership development team, so that we're not really leveraging this in 1890.
Follow question. Member committee.
Thank you, Chairperson. So, how would you see the brand of Isaac Hong Kong in terms of internal and external perspective?
My perspective is we should have the one single same brand. It's youth leadership for Hong Kong. But internally, we'll stress more on the word leadership because that is the essence of our everyday operations. Like as Isaac is, we should be focusing on developing our own leadership and our youth leadership. But when we're going to like externals, like lead externals, we can stress more on the word youth because we are the like largest youth-run organization in the world. We create a huge youth network to connect companies with our network so that they can have their like CSR, like company strategies.
Okay, finish the first round. We'll go back to Isaac and City. Isaac and City.
Darren, can you name 3 most important KPI and 2020 you would like to have?
Thank you, Chairperson. The first and most important KPI is NPS score, whether it's for our talents and our exchange, because it's our people. The second is exchange numbers. The third one is number of candidates who progress per position.
Okay, follow-up question. Upon clarification.
NPS, exchange, and progression.
Okay, follow-up question. Isaac and City.
On the other hand, can you name the biggest challenge that you foresee that you will face as MCP of Isaac Hong Kong and convince the family that you can overcome it?
Derek.
Thank you, Chairperson. So in terms of the first KPI, I think it's going to be challenging because like throughout, whether it's from 2015 until now, the NPS for our members and leaders are not great. So the great benchmark is 50, but we have not reached 50 ever since 14, 15. And this is my goal, like 50 NPS goal. So from my strategies, those things will contribute to this KPI. In terms of exchange numbers, we've been growing until 17-18, but that's just because we have huge change management last year, customer flow and Facebook merge. So as we slowly build up our foundations, that will grow too. In terms of progression, I think the mindset of Hong Kong people is we don't like to compete a lot. Like we think there's a chance of losing and we'll be considered as failure. So I want to cultivate a mindset that you should treat the election process as a learning and don't care about failure as much. Instead, see failing as a chance to learn and really grow.
Time's up.
This is I say in CHK.
Thank you, Chairperson. Can you imagine how many youth in concrete numbers do you envision to engage with by ISA in terms of and the term management?
Time's up.
The controllable so that give me a lot, but I'll just focus on the numbers that I can really control that are on my mind right now. One is exchange. So the 3 products all add up would be 1,000. And then for YS, 250. And for Isaacers ourselves, 500.
Follow-up question. I say CHK.
Thank you, Chairperson. And how would you measure leadership development?
Time's up.
Okay. In my term, the leadership will be focused on purpose-driven and kind leadership, and there should be 2 stages. People should be aware of it first, then they should understand the concepts behind it, and then they apply it. Okay. So the way that we assess that is through our monthly coaching, right? So we can ask people if they're aware of their purpose, help them facilitate to find their purpose and their tendencies in terms of becoming an entire leader, and we gradually build from there. Help them understand how they can apply that, and throughout every month we review with them if they're applying that, and as a coach we support them to apply that.
I say it should be. I say it should be.
So candidate, how do you think the financial health of ISA right now?
Thank you, Chairperson. So in terms of ISA in Hong Kong as a whole, we are in a very healthy situation. We have 300K time deposit that's being locked. And then in 15-16, we had 200K debts. The 16-17 cleared all of those and left behind 100K of net income. And in 17-18, we had even huge net income. So we're in a great financial situation. What we should really focus on is to help LCs become more financially sustainable. This is one. 2 is in terms of our product and organizational sustainability, we are at level 1 in terms of financially. So we're not really covering all the direct and indirect costs. Is one. The second thing is our product revenue is not being the 70% of our entire organizational revenue, and that is not that is something that we should improve towards.
Follow-up question. I say it should be.
Thank you, Chairperson. So how do you plan to sustain ISA in Hong Kong's daily operations without observable and gaining external recognition of resources and finance investment?
Thank Thank you, Chairperson. Actually, for external parts, it's actually in my structure. So I have an MCP, PD, and PR. And as I mentioned, I want to turn this YS thing into a product. So that will be done in 2020 to engage the external network. For finance, I think we need to build on finance standards. So, so there are like different components of finance standards. And in terms of legality, we need to complete the GDPR thing. Right? This is the first thing. The second thing is we are not we are not playing finance strategically. That means we need to start thinking of like a risk probability investment tool to assess the investments and the risks behind our financial investments. And that's something that that's reviewed from our finance standards data. And compared with globally, we are a little bit behind.
Answer HKD.
Thank you, Chairperson. So if there are changes in operations after the term of 192 starts, what would MC do to facilitate EB and members to adapt to it?
Thank you, Chairperson. So whenever there's change, I think it's important that we show that like we're supportive. So there will be 3 touch points that we can leverage on. First one is NLT. Second one is MC and LC O2O. So in these 3 touch points, for the functional areas that are launching new operations flow, they need to be conscious to ask if there is any support needed. Right? This is the first way. The second way is through management. So through the things that we implement, there will be results showing if they can succeed or not. So if they are not succeeding to implement those things, that is a great way for us to like to see if there's anything that we should help instead of blaming them for not being able to execute.
Okay, follow-up question.
Thank you, Chairperson. So according to that, to ensure smooth operation, can you give 3 criteria for choosing an MCEB team?
Time's up.
Thank you, Chairperson. First thing is they need to have functional expertise. So maybe this word is too broad, but I mean, like for each function, I should be able to identify one thing at least, why they can excel in that function. The second thing is they can play with strategies. So they can leverage on external insights. They like to think a lot so that like, they can assess if the operation is smooth enough. The third thing is they need to be a person who can identify problems very clearly. What I mean by that is not just by asking people what is the problem and conclude that is a problem. They need to have a clear mind to understand what is the root cause behind, so that they can like turn the operations to become even smooth.
Okay. Answer HKUST.
What are the problems of ISAC in dealing with the current exchange rate of the and how will you do the analysis of customer objectives?
Poor communication.
Can you repeat again? A bit louder.
What are the problems of ISAC in dealing with the current exchange rates of the EVs? And how will you do the P analysis on customer strength to improve the situation?
Peer analysis.
Like marketing research.
Oh.
No.
Thank you, Chairperson. The biggest struggle right now is our lead manager versus EP potential EP's ratio is too huge. So if we want to contact them timely within 24 hours, that is a huge challenge for different LCs, considering that LCs also tell me there's member commitment issue is one thing. The second thing is about marketing research. So the whole idea is trying to move us from being too heavily reliant on the lead managers closing the deal to stressing a little bit more on digital marketing. But right now, our lead nurturing or our content marketing, it's not based on customer insights. So the marketing research will be based on that, so that our content is valuable as defined by the EPs or leads.
follow-up question.
Thank you, Chairperson. I suggest new systematic ways of incorporating customers' insights like FPS into our operation continuously.
Darren.
Thank you, Chairperson. So we will have the agile workflow next year, and at the last week of every month for OGX department, they should be finding the EPs from the previous year. So it can be IXP. The most convenient way is to just engage the IXPs to ask them if the things that we are doing now are customer centric enough. For the marketing side, because we are doing lean marketing, it's essential that we have the insights of leads so that they contact the leads who are progressing from the landing page to have driven their contact, and we just find them to ask what made you convert to the next step. And that is some insights not assumed by us, but explained by them so that we really know what we should focus on.
I say Lina.
Thank you, Chairperson. What would be the possible threat that may stop you from achieving your plan in the coming term?
Follow-up question.
Sorry, can you repeat again?
Okay. So what would be the possible threat that may stop you from achieving your plan in the coming term?
Thank you, Chairperson. The first thing is the 1920 MCLC relations, because as I said, a lot of things in the plan is because it's national, so MC needs to be a body that LCs trust. This is one thing. The second thing is so I talked about agile a lot in the plan, and I talked about training a lot too. So it requires high knowledge level. It's for the trainers, so it's the leaders, MCP, LC leaders, and for everyone to deliver the agile workflow, knowledge level is a challenge.
Any follow-up question? Answer Lina.
So in case your plan didn't go as well as you wish, how can you redefine your
Darren.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think it's really dependent on the context, like why my plan doesn't work out. But let's say it's because if it's because LC relations is not good, so that my plan is not being executed, that is something I can fix. But even if I fix it, the harm has already been done. So the adjustment is we cannot be too aggressive in pushing things towards LC anymore. Instead, we need to be more supportive and guiding. So if that happens, that would be the scenario. In terms of knowledge level, if we're not able to have such knowledgeable people, then maybe we need to flop some of the new things so that we can focus on the things that we are really good at. But this is the thing that I can really make sure that doesn't happen, because this is like the key to my plan.
Answer Tony.
Thank you, Chairperson. So in your opening speech, you mentioned that the meaning of life is about suffering for doing something that we love. So obviously the MC team this year lacks capacity. So why didn't you step up last year to be the one in the MC team suffering for something that you love, which is Hong Kong and ISA in Hong Kong? Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson. The major reason is, okay, so I see your concern is if I love Hong Kong so much, why didn't I step up, right? So I think if I have this mindset of wanting to contribute to Hong Kong, and I want to be in ISAC, I want to bring the best to ISAC, and that's why I went to work in an internship. And that internship helped me understand what is agile, what are all these new business concepts that the world is playing with, and that's why I want to bring it back to it, like ISAC in Hong Kong. And I mean, if we are going to run, I want to make sure I'm being the best version of myself, so that I can really contribute to ISAC in Hong Kong.
Okay, any follow-up question?
Thank you, Chairperson. So yesterday you have mentioned a lot of international leaders, and you probably mentioned some rooms for improvement of them. So why should you be the chosen one for ISA in Hong Kong in 1920 And
Okay,
you,
stop.
so how can you make sure that you can perform better than them? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I said something like Emmanuel Macron was not able to communicate a vision, right? I'm confident I can communicate vision and unite people with it. This is something I've done in my LCP term, and I'm confident I can do it again in my MCP term. This is one thing. The second thing is being to communicate in a language that builds trust. Like in my LCP experience, I had a painful experience of not being an active listener. And that's why ever since I've become very conscious that building trust, it starts with listening. And that's why I'm confident I can build trust too. And I never like to point fingers when we don't achieve. And that's why when things don't go as planned, it must be because I don't give enough resources to people to become skilled at their jobs. And that's why last year when like one of my VPs is not really competent in her functional area, instead of just blaming, I would have like weekly chats to train her up to be like competent in her functional role. And that's why I'm confident I can do that.
Yes. Member committee.
Thank you, Chairperson. How do you see Isaac Hong Kong Limited in 3 years under your plan? Supposedly 2021 continue to develop your project and also people. First on global plenary, second externally, the third one internally. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. So internally first, I see I see the 3-year plan being 3 stages. We build something up, we optimize, and we standardize. 1819 actually set up or build the product marketing, the flow of product marketing. And in 1920, we optimized. In like 2021, we standardized that. And then we need to launch content marketing next year. And then hopefully in 3 years, we'll standardize, like we're mature in that. And of course, IR operations too. This is like the key for internally. For externally, it's to make Y as a core product so that every year we'll have separate MCP, PD, and PR so that like that person will run this product. This is one thing. The second thing is this product slowly becomes more and more mature, that companies would find us instead of we always have to find people. This is the first thing. Second thing is media. Like we will have more media value through our media service.
Okay. Any follow-up questions? Member committee.
Thank you, Chairperson. How do you see our products will develop and in what direction under your plan in the picture of 1920 and also 2021?
Sure.
Thank you, Chairperson. I see the major way to develop our products is through IR operations. So this is something that we're doing this year. Next year, how I'm going to build that up is through sub-product development. But that is like a pioneering thing. Like I'm trying to have PD elements incorporated into the customer flow. And that is something that we need to like experiment and try to standardize in 2021. Another thing for product development is we need to do more customer-to-customer marketing because like 70% of our leads come from February onwards. And actually before that is the pre-attraction phase. And customer-to-customer marketing can be best done in the summer for us to like have brand exposure aligned with pre-attraction phase.
Okay. So we have 18 minutes left. So I will cut the answering time from the 60 seconds to 30 seconds, and we will compare around again. OLC will still have 1 question and 1 follow-up question.
Sorry. Yeah. I have 30 seconds.
30 seconds to answer. Okay. Answer is CTU.
So LCs are often occupied with high workload, especially during the peak. How do you ensure that MPs will undergo the feedback coaching loop as suggested in the
LC.
Oh, okay. Clarification.
LCED. LCED, we would conduct the.
How will you ensure that MPs will undergo the feedback coaching loop as suggested?
Thank you, Chairperson. The core is being agile, so our structure needs to be agile too. What I mean by that is if we sense our EPMs are not able to handle the huge volumes of EPs, our structure should be agile enough where everyone, whether you're front office, back office, can be dealing with EPs. But that implies we need to have strong training before that to prepare them. And that is in my plan too. Like I stress a lot on training is one thing. The second thing is if we want to coaching, we want to do coaching and consolidate the experience.
Time's up.
Follow question. Answer in CTV.
As stated in the manifesto, the IGT coaching, imagine that you are there to IGT manager with no one's experience. How do you convince me, who is a 25-year-old IGT VP with prior 1.5 years of working experiences, that you are eligible for coaching?
Chairperson.
Okay, Darren.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think there are 4 things that we need to do. Expectation setting, trust building, like mindset management of the IGT executive who needs to do the coaching. And last, it's the setting where this coaching is being done. So about the expectation setting first, it should be done as soon as we are matched to the EP. We told them that we will do this because of what? Like we need to give them a strong purpose. The second thing is we need to build trust with them. Like they shouldn't do something just because the policy told them.
Time's up, candidate.
Answer in CHK. Answer in CHK.
Chairperson, how can you ensure that you recruit a bunch of leaders who are really focused on people, especially plenary of 18-19 section are under a different MCP?
Thank you, Chairperson. So first, even though MC 1890 may have a different direction, but the core of what we do is do people development. The stance of MC 1890 is worth it. So it's still aligned. So for 1920, how can I make sure people are starting with people, right? Starts from the MC team. So how I recruit my MC members, I will tell them what I'm looking for. Values, the qualities, there's one thing.
Follow question. Answer in CHK.
Thank you, Chairperson. Can you name and explain the biggest leadership crisis of plenary of 18-19 section so far? And can you suggest some solutions for it?
Thank you, Chairperson. I don't think there is a big leadership crisis. I think there are indeed some leadership challenges. So just like I said in the beginning, I observed in NLP training that we can be more aligned to our mission, vision, and strategies alignment. This is one thing. The second thing is how we motivate our members to become more committed.
Okay. Answer HAB.
Thank you, Chairperson. Candidate, please state and compare the membership qualities or characteristics from section 1718 to 1819. Thank you.
Time's up, candidate.
Thank you, Chairperson. I cannot go too deep into this. What I can say is reflected from our recruitment numbers, which we have a drop this year. Like we are not given a great selection pool to select the best value aligned. To select the best value aligned members.
Chairperson.
Point of clarification for HK.
Please state and compare the membership qualities.
Yeah, I'm actually getting to that about the members of 1819 are not as fellow aligned as 1718.
Any follow-up question? Answer HAB.
Thank you, Chairperson. Other than fellow aligned as mentioned in your manifesto, what are the other desirable qualities of membership of the
Thank you, Chairperson. At the recruitment stage, value is like number one. Another thing that we should look at is the MBTI results, because that can actually give us insights in terms of which functional area they could be good at, right? That is reflecting his or her like naturally born abilities. So these are the things that happen in the beginning of the year. By the end of the year, the ideal membership qualities is that they become functional experts in their own functional area, and this can be attributed
Time's
to
up,
learning
candidate.
and work.
Message to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. So, candidate, can you tell the plenary one recent development in Hong Kong that you think is the most notable, other than the one that one policy?
For clarification.
One recent development that is
You think is the most notable,
notable.
the most important in Hong Kong?
Council candidate.
So in thank you, Chairperson. So in policy address 2018, actually, like our chief executive places a huge emphasis on housing, but mainly for the people who are poor and old. So there are a lot of like schemes. I don't know the English names for those schemes, but that is not being inclusive enough towards the entire community, because so there is one like scheme. It's trying the public housing and private housing.
Council candidate.
Answer in which you.
Thank you, Chairperson. So, according to what you said just now, how can Isaac Hong Kong play a part in facilitating the development?
Chairperson.
Darren.
Thank you, Chairperson. The first thing is I mentioned a keyword about being inclusive. This is in our Isaac values too, and we need to act that out. Okay. Whether it's through leading our members, so we need to listen to diverse opinions, which, yeah, when I was as a member or a leader, I felt sometimes if I have a completely different opinion, it's not as Isaac said, it's embracing diversity. I can feel it can be stronger. This is one thing. The second thing, it's really long term. So we cultivate purpose-driven and employing talents for the future.
Any follow-up question?
No, next Sophie.
Okay. Answer is curiosity.
Thank you, Chairperson. So looking at the generation of our membership, they actually define themselves as purpose-driven youths. What do you think is the difference between the purpose you want to see and the purpose they say they have?
Thank you, Chairperson. I will be interested to know why they define themselves as that, because a purpose-driven person would be able to explain the purpose that he or she is having, connecting back to his or her values, passion, and strengths. And I doubt that. Like our education system does not nurture that, and that's why I want to ask: can you tell me what you value, what your strengths are, what your passion is, and how does it relate to your purpose?
Follow-up question. Answer is curiosity.
So how would you influence youth that have different perspectives towards Hong Kong social pressure and Islam values so that they will have Isaac aligned values after the
Darren.
Thank you, Chairperson. First, I don't see a lot of misaligned values actually. I see it's just that we are not really conscious in living out our values, and that's why it all connects back to being purpose-driven. So, are we aware of what are the values that we need to live up to, and why do we need to live up to them? This is the first thing. The second thing is just realizing that I hope all the youth can realize their purpose goes back to their
candidate.
Answer in a minute.
Thank you, Chairperson. Hi, candidate. Can you name one potential candidate who may compete with you and stating his or her strengths and weaknesses? And in what way do you think you are more outstanding than the person?
Follow-up clarification.
You mean as an MCP?
Understand?
Does it need to be like recent generations of
No, anyone can be
Council candidate.
Sure.
Thank you, Chairperson. So we had a previous MCP. His name is Gary Wong. That would be like somewhat like I respect a lot because he is very, very visionary, courageous, and determined. So I think those are the things that I may not be as good as him. I'm like learning from him as a role model. But the things I'm confident I'm better than him is listening.
Time's
Building
up, candidate.
Any follow-up question? Answer then.
Chairperson. And what will you do if you are not being elected? May I know your future plan?
Sure.
Thank you, Chairperson. I will run for MCP again because, as I answered Chavez just now, I went to experience more because I want to bring that in. So I want to try once more. This first thing. The second thing is I will go to do something that aligns with my purpose. So be it sales, BD, do it for a few years, and I will become an entrepreneur.
Answer in Pauline.
Thank you, Chairperson. So from others' perspective, would you please list out one factor that will think you are qualified and one factor that you're not qualified as an MCP?
Council candidate.
Thank you, Chairperson. The one quality is I can unite people, whether it's through communicating vision or building personal trust on a daily level. The thing that I might not be qualified enough yet is I've not really showcased to you guys my knowledge and my understanding of this entity, like this short period of election.
Follow-up question from
Thank you,
Answer
Chairperson. So, what have you done to combat the mentioned weakness, as you mentioned? So, can you please state your action steps with specific KPI? Thank you.
And Council candidate.
Thank you, Chairperson. To be frank, I think the key is just to go through this election longer, then I will be showcased. I'm confident I can showcase my understanding of this entity. But how do I get that understanding? It's from like LCP transitions early in November. I did them in November, and then I did LC visits, and I asked for feedback from the LCPs. One thing. The second thing is I also find some individual LCVPs for transitions. The third thing is I study a lot of like Isaac Hong Kong documents and Isaac global documents.
Council candidate.
Member committee. Member committee.
Thank you, Chairperson. So how do you see the role of Isaac in Hong Kong in global and regional planning? A, how are we contributing? And B, how are we leveraging on these identities? Council candidate.
Sure.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think our identity, whether it's in the global plenary or regional plenary, one, it's being pioneering. The second thing is about being critical. So critical, I think, like Hong Kong people, this is us. For the pioneering part, I think we have huge potential here because it's easy for us to have change management. The geographical proximity between all LCs is very short, communication very really quick.
Okay, follow-up question from member committee.
Thank you, Chairperson. So could you also illustrate with examples on how would GT and GE, both incoming and outgoing side, be developed through customer-centric metrics you mentioned in your manifesto and create a life-changing experience for every single EP? Time's up.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think for OGE, first we need to form strong IR, then we do reverse matching. We do direct opportunity matching, right? But this is on the assumption that the logic is we need to have quality supply so that we'll have quality demand. So we need to form IRs with countries that are going to provide quality supply, and we do direct opportunity marketing. This is for OGE. For OGT, the main.
Okay, so this is end of the third round. So before I suspend the meeting, listen carefully about the instructions, because we are going to conduct the LC consultation space right here in the room. So after we suspend the meeting, leave immediately out of this room, because we are having the LC consultations. So we'll proceed with the motion. At time 12:30, Chairperson read procedural motion number 6, which means that the first round of Q&A session by MCP candidate of ICL Unlimited, section 2019 to